chess. Hi, sorry, a few minutes late. Hello. Okay, it's the kingscrusher radio show. So usually it's Tuesday 9 PM. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late, 5 minutes late. We're going to carry on from next week. From next week? No, that would be a trick. Back to the Future. No, we're going to carry on from last week, in fact. Hello. We're going to carry on from last week, looking at the Fischer Spassky match. Sorry, let's mute this. Echo. Hello. Okay, we're going to start. Yes, white's play. Yes, fantastically complicated position, this one. A lot of positions games can result. Someone's done a video, a mathematician by the way, on number file. He's been discussing it. If you want to check that out, there's a YouTube channel discussing the number of possible games of chess. It's more than 10 to 120. That was Shannon's estimate. Apparently there's much bigger estimates. But anyway, aside from that, the Spassky-Fischer match, or rather Fischer-Spassky match, 1972, the ninth game. Let's have a look at the ninth game. And if you give me a boring score of more than 8 out of 10, which I suspect you will, we could look at some British Championship games as a bonus to this stream tonight. So just let me know after. Okay. So Spassky against Fischer. Game 9. Game 9. Spassky playing white. So D4 from Boris. And I hope the board's okay. Board's okay. So hello on streaming to YouTube and on Play Chess server. Just checking board's okay. So let's look at Fischer's perspective, shall we? Now this is a secret opening insecurity already for me personally. I know that for you guys. I'm good at knowing how to play the King's Indian, or even getting there, and the Nimzo sometimes, and the Tarrasch. No, not the Tarrasch, but Benoni's yes. You don't see anything? Oh god, you don't see anything. Let me add the screen again. It's there now, is it? Okay, there now, yeah. Okay, we carry on. So how do we get into the Tarrasch defense? If you've ever wanted to play the Tarrasch defense, it's a mystery to me. Every time I try and play the Tarrasch, I get trashed. Not Tarrasch, I get trashed. I don't know, because I'm playing it wrong. I'm playing in the wrong move order to get to the Tarrasch defense. Let's see how Fischer did it, if he wanted a Tarrasch. So D4. Yes. Now the first step to getting a safe Tarrasch defense might be a tricky move order. Knight F6, as if he's going to play a King's Indian at the moment, or a Nimzo Indian. Far away from a Tarrasch, right? C4 from Spassky. So now we look as though it's going to be a Nimzo Indian, yeah, or a Queen's Indian. So the big question mark: what opening will it be? Nimzo Indian, Queen's Indian. There's the question now. Knight F3. So is it going to be a Queen's Indian, or is it going to be a Queen's Gambit declined? In fact, it turns into a Queen's Gambit kind of, well, an odd Queen's Gambit declined. Well, I don't know how odd. Let's connect to Livebook and put on a kibitzer actually. This is the most common move, D5 here. So we get a Queen's Gambit declined. And I'm going to add on a kibitzer as well. Let's add Fritz 13, it's pretty stable. Usually doesn't crash and burn, so okay. So what do we get now? The most common move here is played by Boris Spassky. So are we all okay with this opening so far? Knight C3. Now here is it. What openings do we want with black here? I think the modern approach and the most beaten road seems to be C6. That triangle of the semi-Slav. That's a semi-Slav, right? C6. Bishop E7 is a Queen's Gambit declined, isn't it? Bishop B4 is, I've forgotten what it's called. It is pretty trendy at the moment, Bishop B4. Rogozin, is it? D takes C4 is like a Queen's Gambit accepted. Knight BD7 still looks like a Queen's Gambit declined. But here we go with C5. c5. This has been played apparently in live at nearly 2,000 times, but nearly 24,000 times c6. So c5 is far less popular than c6. So we're in, what are we in exactly? Tarrasch or semi-Tarrasch? That's another problem with me playing the Tarrasch. I don't know what I'm playing. Is it the Tarrasch or the semi-Tarrasch? This apparently is the semi-Tarrasch. Maybe, whoa, sorry, semi-Tarrasch. Let's go back. We're in the semi-Tarrasch. Is this a safe way of getting it? Well, is it? What's the risks? Is there an isolated queen's pawn risk for both sides? Quite often is playing e3 here. This is also very popular, just to take on d5. Now, I think I know where I've been going wrong with the Tarrasch. What do you guys play here? I think I know exactly where I'm going wrong. This highlights it. If you want to play the semi-Tarrasch, just lock down the mouse wheel. Lock down, behave. Right, so c5. C takes d5. What does black play here? So if you're playing black to play, any Tarrasch experts, what would you play here with black? And this is about as fascinating as this game gets, by the way, so I'm looking at opening in particular. What would you play as black in this position? It's actually the most popular move. And why, structurally? Why? Because actually I think we're borrowing ideas from another opening now to play this in the most effective manner in this particular position. So who would play e takes d5? This is the problem I have conceptually with all these opening transpositions or potential openings that we've had so far. I'm glad some of you have said e takes d5. I don't think this is the right way necessarily to play this position. There's a Grunfeld style of playing this position which seems to dominate, which is actually to try and go for a more solid pawn structure with knight takes d5. This seems to be the most popular move, nearly 1,400 games. Although you're locking in your bishop, the upside of your pawn structure, you haven't created a potentially dangerous isolated queen's pawn. This is actually, it seems to be the most trodden move, and I suspect might be the best move. What does the engine say, just out of interest? The engine, funny enough, has c takes d4 as the top move, e takes d, but it hasn't got its opening. But with Livebook, knight takes d5 is pretty popular, and it looks to be more borrowing a Grunfeld defense idea. And if you think about it fundamentally, the Grunfeld defense, the pressure is on white center. You haven't got this potentially dreaded isolated queen's pawn. So, Fischer didn't go for that. He didn't want an isolated queen's pawn. He wanted a more solid pawn structure. Is it duller? I mean, what about this queen's bishop issue? So he plays it with knight takes d5. We have what seems to be a bit Grunfeld-like position, to me at least now. We have I think, like a Grunfeld defense almost transposition in some way. e4, knight takes c3, b takes. So black is missing a potentially defensive useful knight on f6 here. Well, sometimes in the Grunfeld it's over here. But there's pressure, a little bit of pressure on d4, c takes d4, c takes. But with this bishop closed in, does it seem a bit feeble, this pressure on d4 here? Does black's position look a bit on the passive side? It's a Queen's Gambit decline line, someone's arguing. Okay, no, I'm just saying it's got that Grunfeld flavour to it. It's rather than a Tarrasch. For me, it's got that flavour because black's pressurising the centre here. But with this bishop issue, it's gonna. How does black solve that? Now white actually played bishop c4 here, and black played quite a tactical move, which maybe is a little bit double-edged. In fact, it's certainly not the engine choice. It's a bit double-edged. It's a forcing move, b5. So relying on the king still in the centre. So if bishop takes b5, this wasn't played. then Fischer would snap up the bishop. Thank you very much. He'd win that bishop because it was check. Little trap. Nevertheless, bishop c4 is the most popular move, just to provoke that kind of weakness. The bishop went back to d3. In fact, it seems more popular overall to play it to e2, but it went back to d3 here. And now we have this check. Bishop d2. And yes, this is a little bit dull, I know, but I think by this stage Fischer's like ahead in the match anyway. I think he'd be keen to draw with the black pieces. So a couple of the bishops come off, and the pawn is now protected with a6. Yes, of course not. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes, bishop takes b5 check, winning the queen. No, no, no. Just protect the pawn. Fischer protects the pawn. I think I'm vaguely understand the game so far now that I understand the mechanics of the Tarrasch and how not to play the Tarrasch, play it Grunfeld style. So for me that was interesting from the opening perspective. But what are we left with here? Isn't this a bit of a target, this b5 pawn? Or, you know, what about the pressure on d4? Well, white actually has a quick go at that b5 pawn with the move a4. And because of the pressure on d4 here, black just castles, so that knight takes d4 is on the cards. Knight takes d4 is now on the cards. This is game 9. This is game 9. So queen c3 is actually played protecting the pawn rather than taking on b5. I think that's the best move. If taking on b5, hang on. No, when I say that's the best move, queen c3. No, actually, the engine actually likes a takes b5 here. So knight takes. What does white do? What does white do here? It's got queen e1. Knight takes. Queen takes. Well, this might be a tiny edge for white. I don't know. I don't think white wants to play this. This would be a mistake. Queen takes. And then that's just horrible. That's just better for black. But apparently this might be technically a good move if followed up here with queen d1 or queen e3. To take might be a mistake because it's actually activating black quite significantly. But a move like queen e3, and I think maybe it seems this position might be okay for white. But anyway, in the game we see this move queen c3. Just, it seems very logical. Protect d4, hit the knight, renew the threat of this. But Fischer just reacts as cool as a cucumber because the rooks are not connected yet, right? White hasn't castled. Just plays bishop b7, protecting c6. And now black is threatening maybe b4 with a passed pawn. White takes that off, a takes, and now the rook, there's pressure on the rook, right? So I suspect this is a disaster move. White just castled here. If he took on b5 here, no, this is a bit of a disaster. Rook takes, queen takes, and although there's no queen a5, the move knight b4 here threatens knight c2 check, and bishop takes e4. And what does white do about that? If queen c3, queen a5, hitting the bishop and threatening discovery around the queen, c2 and d3. So essentially, the point I'm making here, this position here is better for black because there's a great penalty. Whoops, not there. King d2, queen takes here, knight takes, and the centre's actually falling. So basically white does best not to take on b5 here after a takes. Yes, this is not good to allow this stuff. with knight b4. Nope. White castles. There was possibly rook mileage in considering rook takes a8. Rook takes a8 is also another possibility, it seems. Instead of castling, queen takes, castling here. It's a bit dull. Oh, let's just go back to the beginning. No, okay. So bishop b7, a takes, white castled, and we have a dull position at move 16. Which is roughly equal now, it seems. Now, black's major problem at the moment seems to be b5. Oh, God. Stop it, mouse. Stop. Alright, click that. That stops the mouse scroll. Right, okay. Queen b6, rook ab1 is played. And now we see this b4. Queen just drops back here. And apparently black might actually be able to play b3 here. It seems might be able to play b3, but he didn't. Fischer just liquidated, no, not liquidated, I think it's the wrong word, simplified the position. He simplified the position by playing knight takes d4. Possibly if he was being really adventurous with black, then maybe b3. Apparently this has some interest here, maybe temporarily, but I'm not entirely sure. It looks a little bit of a weakness. No, he didn't want to commit to that, keeping that potential weakness. He just took on d4, and we have that like exchange of prisoners concept that Nimzovich has talked about, where both sides agree to exchange their kind of weaknesses. So we have d4 being swapped for b4. Okay, so it's kind of symmetrical pawn structure territory. So it doesn't seem the most exciting, dynamic, thrilling game of all time to reach this position at move 20. And the game continued, queen e3, rook fd8. Yes, threatening this, a counter-attack on this bishop. And yes, some more simplification. Queen takes, queens come off. Okay, white is threatening a back row mate. So black does something about that, g5, which is a nice move because it also constrains f4. But it's not enough, I think, to win this position. This is pretty drawish. I did warn you. I'm going to have to request a boring score from 1 to 10, where 10 is mega boring. Okay, the rooks now come off. Yes, okay, I'm not claiming this game is the most exciting. I was just doing it in chronological order. Yes, game 9 came up. It's boring, isn't it? It's a rook and pawn ending, and they shortly agreed to draw here. H takes g5, draw agreed. For me, the only important thing for me about this game is how to sort of, as though you're going to play a Tarrasch, but then you sort of play a sort of strange Grunfeld style instead. You avoid the isolated queen's pawn. Theoretically, I just thought it was a little bit interesting. But if we go if we go back to that critical position that interests me about the opening, because I want to get my openings up, we can transpose straight into a Tarrasch with e takes d5. There's 278 games here. g3, the games creep up. We're transposing into Tarrasch defense territory. Now there's 2,600 games. This is the way you accept all the fun of the isolated queen's pawn. You see, this is the main line. Here we've got over 4,000 games here, over 4,700. You see, this would have been a proper Tarrasch defense, wouldn't it? It would have been a proper Tarrasch defense. But no, we get this thing that if you don't want to risk your isolated queen's pawn, you play this namby-pamby move, knight takes d5. But no, he only wanted the draw with black. He was leading the match. You can't blame him. It takes less risk, I think, to play this knight takes d5. It's not like the mainline hardcore Tarrasch defense, is it, after this? So anyway, has anyone got any questions? because I might try and look up some exciting British Championship games for players you never heard of ever, just because the games are fun. So does anyone have any questions on this game? So boring score. So 1 exciting, 10 mega boring. What is the boring score? Make me feel guilty for showing you this game. Yeah? Okay, on stream I'm asking. There's only 2 people watching this on Play Chess. I don't blame them. Apparently game 10 is very exciting next week. So there's something exciting if we cover game 10 next week. Oh, apparently B. Kirker has said Spassky won a brilliant game against Petrosyan in their 1966 match with this opening with 15 Queen A5. Now I never knew this bit of trivia, that actually here apparently is this, are you kidding? Spassky against Petrosyan 1966 match, Queen A5. Let me see this position. Queen A5 is a move which is supposed to be clear advantage for white. So someone's saying Queen A5. Let me find this game. Seriously, what game number? I'm going to find that game. Spassky against Petrosyan. If it's brilliant, I'm going to find it right now, right here. I'm going to search for this game. Spassky versus Petrosyan. What game number? 1966 match. Spassky won. Spassky wins. I'm trying to look. 1966 when Spassky won. French, Coruscant. No, I can't see it. Petrosyan against Spassky. Queen's game at decline. Tarrasch. Hold on a sec. Oh. Okay, I'm just checking how brilliant this is before exposing everyone to it. It looks fairly interesting. Is it brilliant? Is this the right one? That looks like a proper Tarrasch game. Oh no, there's a bit of a king attack. Ah. That was a proper Tarrasch. This is a bit of trivia. Maybe 1969. There was a game in 1969. I'm just going to post it to him. No, I can't post it to him. Is this the brilliant 1969 game? Can someone check this out and say how brilliant it is? I'm going to load it in. Hang on. That's the only one I can see that Spassky won. Hang on. Spassky won. 1969. When did Spassky win? There's that one. Or there was another one which Spassky won in move 44. That was a Queen's game. It declined. The only Tarrasch I can think of. Oh, that was very, very different. Fascinating. Okay, I'll give you a bonus game here or 2. Okay. 19 game 6, move 41. That was interesting how it ended. Let's have a quick look at this. In the Petrosyan Spassky World Championship rematch of 1969, we had a similar opening here, just for those wanting some opening trivia. And the game was like this. So I'm going to load that up. So this was for a far less prize fund. But Tigran Petrosyan was playing white. This is, I think, game 4. This is game 4. Right? I think this looks like game 4. Who wants to see this? This is a Tarrasch. Right? Tigran played c4. We have e6. So English opening, going into Queen's Gambit declined, going into Tarrasch. Right? But there's a crucial difference here. If you observe this position, the knight is not on f6. Right? Now, without that knight on f6, see, Fischer's move order has knight on f6. White now played c takes d5. And it all makes sense now, the confusion, in my mind at least. It all makes sense. There's no knight takes d5 here. There's no avoiding it. Black's going to get an isolated queen spawn here. He has to play e takes d5, with this move order. Agreed? Okay, so e takes d5. Spassky is accepting the isolated queen's pawn. Knight f3, knight c6, and we have Tarrasch defense, proper Tarrasch defense territory. Not semi-Tarrasch, real Tarrasch. Real Tarrasch. Knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, both sides castle, bishop g5. And now black makes it clear that yes, he's accepting an isolated queen's pawn. Black plays c takes d4, accepting the isolated queen's pawn. Knight takes d4. Now, for those of you who are not intimately aware, what is the upside of an isolated queen's pawn and what are the downsides? The downside is itself structurally, it's a downside, it's a potential problem. It can be blockaded in an endgame, it might be a liability. A king might blockade it in the endgame. When it's blockaded, someone might use their passed pawn somewhere on the queen side or the king side. The upsides, it supports outpost squares. The rooks can blast on the c-files. There's outpost squares on c4 and e4. With a great attacking player, they have used the Tarrasch defense with some success sometimes. I think Eric Lobron I've seen some brilliant games, Tarrasch defense. h6 was played here. Bishop e3, maintaining a strong grip, a blockade on d4. We see bishop g4. Black's pieces are free. Yes, he's got that liability structurally, but black's pieces are active here. We see knight b3, bishop e6. It seems a bit passive, just to be defending this d pawn for a moment. And it seems white's going to enjoy torturing black, maybe with a strategic exchange of dark square bishops, and try and get a knight to c5 later. Rook e8, rook e1. Yes, a mysterious rook move from Tigran Petrosyan here. Rook e1. Why on earth would anyone want to do rook e1? I've heard about these mysterious rook moves that he plays. Unfortunately, because a lot of Tigran Petrosyan's games are draws, I haven't really presented that many of them. I presented quite a few of his wins, I mean, percentage-wise. But yeah, these mysterious rook moves must exist in a lot of Tigran Petrosyan's draws. I don't know what it does, particularly. It's just pretty mysterious, because it's blocked at the moment by these two. So, queen d7, as though bishop h3 is a pretty crude attacking idea. But now bishop c5, yes, get rid of the dark square bishops. Try and use the c5 for a knight later. Rook ac8. Strategically, this does seem like a useful operation that white's just carried out. Exchange the dark square bishops. And now we see one of the points, maybe the rook on e1. It's useful here after e3 to try and prevent d4, because that rook could be bearing down on the queen. So maybe some prophylaxis was behind it. Some secret prophylaxis was behind that against the isolated queen's pawn, ever liberating. Rook ed8, queen e2, and now we see the bishop coming back to g4. No, I've definitely got the game score. I've pasted game score, Burgurka. This is definitely the game. On chessgames.com, you'll be able to find this game. There's two games, 5 and 6, 4 and 5. Sorry, this is game 4. 4 and 5 are two decisive games. I've pasted the game score. I've pasted the game score. Literally, I couldn't have made a mistake. Petrosyan was white in this particular game. I think this is game 4, 1969 match. Petrosyan was white. f3 was played. Bishop f5. Rook cd1. At the moment, yes, with Tigran Petrosyan playing white. What is there going on here? d4 seems well and truly unavailable at any point. Knight e5, we see potentially, you know, maybe could that be useful one day? Maybe. Or there's pressure points. Queen b4, bishop would drop back. Okay, so we see knight d4 hitting the bishop. Bishop does drop back. And now we see bishop h3 asking the rook to move, but the rook now goes to c4. So what do you think about this? Does black, if I ask that, does black have any compensation here for the IQP? What is your response? What do you think? Does black have any compensation? I can't change the stream title. Yes, it's just the background to the game 9, a proper Tarrasch I wanted to show you. Does black have any compensation here for the isolated queen's pawn? Engine actually favours white here with the move f4. But actually, I think Petrosyan went a bit crazy here. It seems as though he went a little bit crazy with white. He played g4. In principle, that seems to be a bit weakening. That couldn't have been a finger slip, could it? It seems a bit of a weakening move with g4. Why would you want to play g4? What's the idea? Is the idea to support knight f5 maybe? We see rook b4 and now b3, because maybe black, not sure what black was threatening actually. b3 was played. Knight c6, and now keeping that blockade nice and cozy maybe, or preparing to accept possibility of a pawn going there instead. But white is actually okay. What's this rook doing there? We see the rook coming to b6 now, a very strange rook maneuver indeed, the rook going to b6. Knight c e2, and I can't imagine how black generates some major attack here, but it is Spassky playing black, and if you look at some of his games, he's a very aggressive attacking player sometimes. So this bishop drops back. It's like he's clearing this third rank. Is this rook going to do something later? Bishop g2, rook e8, threatening queen takes e3. We see knight g3, and both knights are looking at that what seems to be quite a juicy f5 square supported by the pawn. Black now plays knight takes d4, and actually we don't get queen takes d4 maintaining the blockade here. On queen takes d4, the engine actually prefers black here, believe it or not, after a move like queen a3 or rook e6 even. Because what is white doing about the e3 pawn, interestingly? This is a bit dodgy. If king f2, queen a3, it's dangerous. Rook here. Does black have play? Maybe black doesn't have problems. Black doesn't seem to have problems anyway. So anyway, white actually took with the pawn, e takes d4. So there's no isolated queen's pawn scenario again. Black seems to be fine here. And we see rook e6. So it's actually contesting that very important central file now. It seems white has lost control a bit of this position and has potential dark square weaknesses. Rook takes e6, queen takes e6. We see rook c1. And it seems again a bit of a nothingness. Bishop g6. Should this be a draw or something? After that, bishop f1. But now knight h7. And all of a sudden knight g5 is an interesting threat to threaten f3. We see queen f4. Now, here, after queen f4, if knight g5, h4 is very good, it seems, for whites, because we're trapping this bishop. So that's actually kind of prevented. It's actually not only protected, it's threatening that. So the knight actually, after queen f4, went to f8. Sneaky. And now we see rook c5. Again, at this point on move 34, it seems as though this is roughly equal now. No one's got a structural issue. Black seems to control the central file for what it's worth. Bishop b1 now is played. a4. But bishop b1 vacated that g6 square. Now knight g6 hitting the queen. Queen d2. And now this g4 is brought into question. That f4 square is locked down with queen f6. See, this is why g4 is a long-term problem on f4 here. And I think black is starting to get into the driving seat with this move, queen f6. If rook takes d5, this wasn't played, then queen takes f3. That's not very nice here. For example, yeah, it's not nice. So white protects f3, and now we see this move knight f4. I'm not sure this really has anything to do with the Tarrasch defense this game anymore. I think it's Petrosyan playing crazy earlier. This g4, very committal move. Now black has got this very juicy knight now, and is actually threatening things like bishop d3 potentially, because if it takes, the queen takes d4 check. We see a5, and in fact this bishop d3 is played now, so interrupting d4. So white can't take that, yeah, because queen takes d4 check. It's pretty nasty. So this is horrible now for white. Petrosyan, he rarely loses games, but he's getting crushed here. Knight f5, and now we see a nice tactical move, although that's protecting d4. Black to play here. What would you play with black? Black to play, if I give you 20 seconds here, what would you play? Anyone? Black to play here. Okay, I'm going to show you now. Yes, queen g5. It's a kind of check to the queen, almost like knight h3 check to try and win the queen is threatened. What does white do here? He played actually knight e3, but white's position starts crumbling now. Queen h4 check. After king g1. Bishop takes f1, and white resigned here. Why did white resign? Well, black's getting on to that second rank here. If knight takes, rook e2 looks crushing, threatening queen f2. The check here doesn't do anything because, well, it just doesn't do anything. And if, well, what is it? If king takes, then check, and it's all falling apart. If here we take here, and if king, well, where does the king go? Yeah, queen takes f3. It's all pretty gone. It's all gone. But I think the problems really started from g4. Yeah, I think Petrosyan uncharacteristically played that g4 move. Okay, so yeah, that was an example Tarrasch defense game. Now, this wasn't the game this guy was going on about, was it? It was the fifth game in the rematch. Spassky was white. Oh, sorry, fifth game. Oh, okay. Was it truly brilliant? Spassky was white. Okay, who wants to look at the fifth game of the rematch? Fifth game, anyone? Apparently it was brilliant. Spassky was white. Shall we look at that? Are you sure? What year? What year? What? B. Kirker, what year? Let's get the year right. The rematch. Right, 1969, fifth game. I'm nearly around there. Okay, I can load up game 5 if you really want. I'm gonna have a quick play through on game 5. Yes, funny enough, they had 2 decisive games in a row there. Games 4 and 5. Quite a lot of the match was draws. So that was an exciting, juicy bit of the match I just showed you. Now game 5, let's have a quick, I'm going to have a quick look myself. And funny enough, it was with a knight takes d5. Sorry, this was the guy's original point. Pardon me, this is the one of historical relevance. Oh dear, sorry, I should have started with this. Oh, wow, really? Hang on, I don't believe it. Oh good, Fischer might have innovated on this. So it's true, Fischer went through all of his games and came up with something different here that Petrosyan didn't play. Fischer came up with something different. Of course. Whoa! Whoa! I believe you, B. Kirker. He's right. This game's brilliant. Oh my god. This game is relevant and brilliant. I'll give you a link on stream. We're going to have a look at this. Game 5, 1969 match. Spassky playing white against Petrosyan. Do we take the white or black perspective here? I think to try and keep it in parallel, should we take the white perspective? Now I'm confused. I can't make up my mind. Should we take the black perspective? Do you want to take the white or the black perspective? From the basis of the Fischer game, we're going to go into Fischer's brain and his database of games. This must have been in Fischer's database of games, so it does actually have a relevance to the Fischer-Spassky game, right? Believe me, I believe it does. You want to take it from the white perspective, do you? Okay. We're going to take it from Spassky's perspective. Okay, I'll replay with the black perspective after. Okay, can I replay with the black perspective after? C4 from Spassky, right? Petrosyan played knight f6. So we get the knight f6. The important thing about the Tarrasch, we get the knight f6. We get the knight there first. So then later the CD, we've got the option of knight d5. This is a crucial thing that I've ignored before. This little nuance. If you want to play the Tarrasch, play knight f6. You get another option, right? Knight c3, e6, right? As though we're going into Queen's Gambit decline territory for a moment. But now, with the knight installed on f6, now we play c5. So we've got this extra option, right, of knight takes d5. Yeah? C takes d5. And knight takes d5 is now the most popular move from this particular position and this move order, apparently. E takes d5 is only 278 games. So if your idea was knight f6 earlier, you've probably got this in mind. You want to play knight takes d5 here. Now this Bukirka, to recall this, I think this guy is cultured. Okay, so B-K-I-R-C-A. Thanks very much. You're very cultured to recall this game. E4. Knight takes c3. Spot the similarity to the Fischer-Spassky game. C takes d4. So the Spassky-Fischer game. C takes d4. Bishop b2. Hang on a sec. No, yeah, let's carry on. Bishop b4, bishop d2. Looks dull. After castling, Spassky, and this is the main move in the position, right? It's the main move. 610 games. There's only 71 with bishop e2. Spassky played back in 1969 bishop c4. Yeah, in the game we saw, Fischer came up. This is a different position. There's no queen a5 check. What am I talking about? There's no queen a5 check. This makes all the difference. So we had a different game there with the b5. We had a very different game. We've got bishop b4 check here and castling. It's a very different game now, where white's d pawn is actually quite significant here. Okay, we see knight c6. There's none of this b5 stuff. White's d pawn is significant in this game. Black plays b6. Rook ad1, just getting behind this d pawn. Bishop b7, rook fe1. And does white have a small advantage? If I asked you, does white have a small advantage? What do you think here? Does he? This is very different, isn't it? Very different flavour to the position. There's some tension in this position, and there's a trump card. There's an important trump card that white has. As Antonio Ferreira, I'll believe you, Fischer played knight c6 and only bishop b4 check after, you're right. So he got in that immediate b5. Yes, very different way of getting the game. So this is Spassky against Petrosyan, game 5, 1969. We've got a potential trump card, this d pawn, right? And I mean, literally, I think I've seen Kasparov annotate games where he's talked about one of his games and the d pawn, all this complicated tactics and stuff, and he was emphasising he just wanted to queen his d pawn amidst a very complicated looking position with white. So the d pawn is the trump card here, I believe. Rook c8, the d pawn is pushed, e takes, but for the moment not e takes d5, but actually bishop takes d5 is more annoying here. This is very, very annoying, with the potential ideas like this to smash through with the bishop pointing at f7. Bit of a nuance. You might think, because I've said about the d pawn, have I been telling porkies or something? But actually, this position here is okay for black. It's more dangerous to play bishop takes d5 here, because now you've got this e5 or queen f4. You're pointing at f7. Knight a5, but now the d pawn is a potential d pawn, right? Because you're pointing at f7, and immediately threatening bishop takes, attacking the queen. Queen c7, queen f5, keeping the pressure on f7. Now black takes on d5, so we get this d pawn back with a vengeance, right? With no problem piece behind it. Still about the d pawn now, really is. D pawn, queen c2, wanting an exchange of queens, and Spassky, maybe trusting his d pawn, doesn't care about his little a pawn. He plays queen f4. So this is where the game starts to spin off out of control for Tigran Petrosyan. The dynamics of the position. Can he control the dynamics here? He's got no blockade. This d pawn is going to get quite advanced and dangerous. He does take a2 as if he's going to survive to an endgame. Oh my god, he's giving me another 2 game references, this guy, guys. Oh my god. Petrosyan calls smoke. Okay, we'll get to that. d6. What do you think about the compensation here? Do you think this is good enough? Is the d pawn good enough? Rook cd8, d7. What is white actually threatening? Well, queen c7 and taking is the threat. Maybe for rook e8 then. We see queen c4 protecting c7. Right, hitting the queen. The queen goes to f5. Threatening, potentially, something like knight g5. I'll just show you this happens to be the threat in the position. All right, if I'll give you a token move just to show. a6, this wasn't played. Knight g5 is dangerous for black. Here. This is very dangerous, this stuff. I'll give token moves just to show. Knight e8 check. Yeah, it's all pretty dangerous to allow that. Okay, so there are some dangers for the black king. Petrosyan snuffed all this out in its inception, of course. He plays h6, none of this nonsense. He just stops knight g5, right? We see rook c1, queen a6. And now we see rook c7. Okay, so that d pawn's not going anywhere at the moment, and this knight's not coming back that easily. We see b5. Now, here, apparently, white has a crushing move in this position from an engine perspective. White actually has a +4 move in this position, mysteriously. I wonder if B. Kirker is aware of that. White has a crushing move here, guys. White has crushing move, it seems. This wasn't played. This wasn't played at move 26. Can you see what white can play, apparently? I can see it now that it's pointed out. I can see it's crushing, I think. Just about. Yes. I see it's crushing. Yes. Just about. Anyone else want to guess? Yes. It seems actually the engine's excited about rook e8 here. Because we got pressure on f7, right? So if takes, that's a total disaster. We just take here, and we've got pressure on f7, like mate in 2. And what if black doesn't do that? What does black do? You know, say black does this, then rook c8 is crushing, because remember it's supported. We've got all this pressure now. What does black do? Knight c6. It all falls to bits after queen c5, threatening the rook. What does black do? So he takes. Is that really the best move? D takes. We've just won a whole rook. So yes, it seems a win was missed with rook e8. This is like nearly +5. If you ever get this position, rook e8, crushing. Everyone convinced that's a crushing move. Fascinating. If queen g6, queen could just take, and we get this rook c8 again. It's supported by the d pawn. It's a nice d pawn tactic to bear in mind. But anyway, knight d4 was played. Not as good, but still strong. Plus about +2. Still very strong move. Queen b6. And we see rook c8 now because it's supported by that queen. Rook c8. And this is a neat tactic as well, because you know, if takes, that's a disaster, right? We just take here. And then we've got rook e8 check here, because the king can't get out. So that's a pretty neat way of doing things. Knight b7, trying to hold on to d8. And now we see knight c6. So yeah, what does black do? Well, Petrosyan in this position played the move knight d6. Knight d6. And actually Spassky did play the most incisive, it seems, computer approved move in the position here. Now, what do you do? Your queen's attacked. What do you do? White to play here. What would you play as white? Any ideas? Actually, it is quite a winning position, apparently. In any case, it's quite a strong position. The knight's actually protecting e8, so I'm not entirely sure of all the great moves that rook e8 is a move here. If rook e8, I think it was designed against that. In particular, we can just take here apparently, and then just take here, and because the knight's holding e8, so no. There are some other strong moves in this position, but Spassky played this one. Apparently, knight e7. By the way, I just want to show you this. I think it's good for white in this position. There's knight g6 check here. Yeah, so the king. If the king goes there, then knight takes f8, and this position here is really good for white. This position here after h4. this position here, because now knight e6 without getting back row mated. This is good for white. I mean, it's not getting back row mated. Yeah, this is apparently very good for white. But that's the really technical way of playing things, knight e7. But the most crushing is what was played, which was knight takes d8. So Petrosyan took the queen, and now a knight c6 was played, simply threatening to take care and then queen. And black in this position with that d pawn has reached, you know, menacing proportions after that queen sacrifice. The blockade has been lifted, and would you agree that it's hopeless? Petrosyan resigns here. Do you agree that this is hopeless for black? Yeah? So just to recap on that, once you agree it's hopeless, I'll just recap what happened. So the blockade was actually lifted. So the d pawn's really dangerous. Yes. So in the game continuation, after sacking that a2 pawn, this d pawn is just blasted through using a queen sack to gain a bit of time to reach this defenseless position for black. That d pawn's really powerful, isn't it? Not only threatening to queen, but also supporting that rook on c8 for that moment. So if we give black a move, say knight d6, take here, this position, well, we're just a rook up, we just queen, and we're a rook up. Right, so now there's another two game references. Do you want me to chase these up? This guy's giving me game references that was pretty similar. So Petrosyan Korchnoi in the same opening and position. Is that a good enough clue for me to track that down? Petrosyan against Korchnoi. Find similar. I'm going to use the find similar games at chess games comment. It's this temporary disables. Just our luck. Was that this decisive game? Petrosyan against Korchnoi. Okay, can anyone get me the game link? Petrosyan against Korchnoi. Petrosyan versus Korchnoi. Did Petrosyan win? Did Petrosyan win that game that you're talking about? Or was it a Tarrasch? I can try and quickly find a Tarrasch. I've found a semi-Tarrasch. Oh my god. 1977 Korchnoi Petrosyan candidates quarterfinal is a semi-Tarrasch. Alright. I'll just quickly look at that. Indeed, that was with knight takes d5. Oh blimey. Oh blimey. How is this guy finding similar games? I'm getting freaked out now. What? Yes. Okay. Wow. Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh, this is quite a crusher. Ah, quite crushing. Quite the crush. Okay, who wants to look at cautionary against Petrosyan, candidates quarterfinal in 1977? It's a semi-Tarrasch. It's thematic. Semi-Tarrasch. For our Fischer Spassky game. Okay, Petrosyan playing against Korchnoi in 1977 saw a semi-Tarrasch. Yeah? I'll give you the game link. Right? Here's the game link on stream, right? I'm giving it. If you want to play through it quickly yourself. Right, let's have a quick look at this. So Petrosyan with the white side, right? Against Korchnoi, d4, and Korchnoi goes into this. He's heading for this semi-Tarrasch. He plays that sneaky knight f6 early. It's not going to be a Queen's Gambit declined, or only for a glimpse, a moment. Queen's Gambit declined. After knight c3, we get this move c5. So black has that big option that I'm talking about, the knight takes d5 option. Yeah, so black is not obliged to play e takes d5 here. It's the most popular move, believe me, in live book, to take with the knight. Korchnoi took the knight. We see e4, knight takes, c takes, and in this game we don't see Fischer's move order, which I think was that, you know, with this idea of the check. We see this bishop b4 check being inserted again early. Bishop d2, black taking, castling, bishop c4, knight c6. White castles, we see b6. So is this position, it seems white's got something, a little bit of something here. A little bit of a trump card in the making. Rook fe1, bishop b7. The rooks are pretty harmonious, right? Do you think white's got a small advantage? White a small advantage? Do you think? I think I've won a 5-minute game in this sort of position recently, actually. I was a bit insecure about it. I think without the bishop pair, it looks as though you're playing against some sort of relative of the Grunfeld. But I think there is some sort of small advantage here for white. But anyway, so we see knight e7 and this d5 move being played. But you'll notice here that the bishop is blocked by the pawn. There's none of this pressure on f7 here, right? And in fact, black is going for a quick blockade, it seems. After knight f5, it seems as though black might be interested in knight d6 to blockade and take the fun out for white immediately. And white can't really play d6, I believe, because bishop takes f3. Black has some good pressure against the structure, but it's, apparently technically this is still okay for white. From an engine point of view, it still thinks that white's okay. But in human game, yeah, white was discouraged from playing d6. He actually probably plays what might be a stronger move, knight e5. He doesn't want to damage pawn structure. And he's still got on the cards d6 here, with great pressure now on f7. So the blockade is put on. And yes, interesting move here. Instead of moving the bishop back, which might be okay as well, white played knight c6, temporarily losing a piece, but advancing that pawn to c6. If knight takes c4, well, we get the same sort of mechanism with queen f4 is possible, as well as just taking the queen. Sorry, queen f4 is possible. So I might as well show you the game. Bishop takes d takes. We see knight takes c4, and the point is queen f4 hitting the knight. The queen can't protect the knight, so we're ending up with this advanced pawn on c6 here in this scenario. Black gives back the knight temporarily, I mean to slow white down in some way. Rook takes d6, queen c7. So we've got this advanced c6 pawn. It's not a d pawn. And I remember reading many years back that I think there was this argument that the strongest pass pawn to have is a d pawn. So we saw the power of the d pawn as a pass pawn in that previous example, but here is a c pawn that's emerged. Do you think this is good enough to win this game? This advanced c pawn here, potentially black has a 2-to-1 pawn majority, of course. So this c pawn, we see g3, h6, queen e5. White has greater central control. Black really doesn't want to give up 2 rooks for a queen here. He plays rook ac8, queen d5, king h7, and it looks like, yeah, white's central control is quite good, very, very good. What is he doing with it? He plays rook e4 for the moment, king g8, and he's improving his position a little bit. You know, black's really under lock and key. Caution, he's under lock and key here. King g2. And I bet you Petrosyan was really enjoying this game, because I get the impression they hated each other. So what's better than just beating someone is torturing someone for a long period of time. This looks like a torture position where white's got, you know, great centralization, this big pass pawn. So, you know, Korchnoi maybe is being tortured here, and Petrosyan will probably love that. Yeah, it doesn't just want to win, right? So this is a torture position. Yeah. So a6, h4, extending his grip on the king side. b5. And actually, no, maybe Petrosyan's had enough of toying with him. He's going for the king now, this next move. And this might explain some, you know, g4s in other games, because sometimes you have success with moves. But here, because he controls the center so well, this is hardly, you know, black's hardly in a position to punish the move g4 here. Even though it might be crude and theoretically creating weaknesses, white's got such fantastic central control. You might think, well, can't black actually contest this e-file? He played king h7, but why can't black contest the e-file here? Let's have a look. Instead of king h7, say this. Does it lose immediately? Yes, it loses immediately, this sort of move. Can you see why rook e8? Why white to play here? Why does rook e8 lose immediately? There's a plus 12 move or more here for white. That there are stories of them kicking each other under the desk. I'm pretty sure are true. I don't think it's just rumour. I think, and yogurt pots, was that another match? No, something else. So. Anyone see a winning move for white here? Yeah, rook d7. Yes, you've got to protect f7 here because you get mated. Yes, this is not good. You get mated, yeah. Familiar mating we've seen in previous examples. So yeah, these pawns are pretty dangerous to king safety in some way. They have a bearing on king safety, these dangerous pass pawns. So, you know, black tried to keep tight with king h7, and the engine is actually starting to rip, you know, apart with g5, but actually rook e2 was played, delaying now g5 here, so threatening to shred black's kings a bit. Yeah. So this is Petrosyan with a dominant grip on the position, and now going for this kingside attack. H5 was played, and now we have the move rook d2. So keeping an iron grip on the center. Rook fe8. In this particular position, by the way, I don't think don't think this works because queen takes c6 is pinning. So actually queen f3 actually was played, hitting h5, among other things. I think that's the main thing. Queen f3. We see g6, and now we see rook 2 to d5, and now that's creating the potential to play rook d7 without any pin. So rook d7 now is on the cards, as well as things like queen f6. We see rook f8. Now here, rook d7 might be appealing for what I've just said, but actually queen takes c6, and this is okay for black. If rook takes, that's a disaster actually for white, this position, because we've got this pin issue, right? So no, white doesn't want to blow his position and have sleepless nights. He actually played rook f6. Rook f6 here, keeping the pawn and threatening rook d7 now for sure. So we see queen e7. I don't think there's anything to stop rook d7 here. There's nothing really stopping that. If rook here, take this, take here, it's horrible for black. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty bad. So we see queen e7, rook d7, and it's amazing, you know, without any bishops and knights, how much fun we can have. There's no bishops or knights on the board, right? And this is still fun. There's only like rooks and this advanced pawn, but it still has this look that it's an exciting attacking position to me, especially after this next move, queen e8. Can you see what white played here? White played, it's a really crushing move. White play here. So what did Petrosyan do in this position? It's a nice one. A nice little tactic. White play, anyone can guess? That pawn on c6 is an indirect king attacking piece. Good idea, Johansson, good idea, but something better than that, much stronger, much more killing. Not queen c... So queen c3 has been mentioned on the stream. This looks really dangerous, right? And it is actually really good. It's a really good move. In fact, it's nearly like +4, so I assume it's winning. Maybe black's best is the check. Queen here. If that's the best move, that doesn't look too good. Yeah, white's winning that anyway, this position. But no, there's a much more beautiful way of finishing off black. That does seem to do the job though. So no, there's a beautiful move for white here. Yeah, rook takes g6. Yeah, because actually, hang on a sec, we've got some coordination on g7. Rook takes g6 is crushing, and now we're also threatening mate in 1, by the way. In the game, it seems cautionary allowed the mate in 1. He played queen e5, checkmate. Yeah, if f takes, we see the queen going to c3, not f6 because the rook's on it, c3. And then we'll get that checkmate. So yeah, this is murderous. Rook takes g6. So that yeah, it's interesting. The positions here seem to be dangerous for white. I think we're getting evidence why Spassky might have fancied his chances in this variation, because it seems, yeah, mind you, this is after the 1972 match. This is 1977. So what was the other game reference? Thanks for that, B. Kirker. So his other game reference, I mean, so far these have been extremely relevant, right? So there's another game reference. Petrosyan won a brilliant game against Caution in 1974. So we've seen that. Petrosyan Caution is this one. And you also mentioned Polgiavsky against Tal. Okay, Polgiavsky against Tal. So who wants to check out Polgiavsky against Tal in the same sort of variation? Anyone? Polgiavsky against Tal, anyone? Polgiavsky Tal? Does that take anyone's fancy? Polgiavsky. Polgiavsky versus Tal. I'm not getting his name right. Hold on a sec. I have to use the combo boxes, I think. Polgiavsky against Tal. Really? So Tal played the black side. Polgiavsky wins. Tarrasch. I found a semi-Tarrasch. Hold on a sec. I found a semi-Tarrasch. Tal fans might not appreciate this game. I warn you, Tal fans might not appreciate this game necessarily. I'm just having a quick playthrough. Aha. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh man. I vaguely recollect this game myself. Wow. Wow. Really? Wow. Fascinating. Vague recollection. I might have seen this game. Maybe it's a classic game. It could be a classic game. Alright, if we'll go to 1969, so it predates the 1972 match, right? I'll give you the game reference if you want to look it up and play through it, okay? On stream, at least. I can't paste, it seems, links on Play Chess, unfortunately, right? Polgiavsky played c4. So Mikhail Tal was also aware of this secret way of getting semi-Tarrasch defense. I'm just kidding. I'm probably not secret at all. I'm just joking there, right? Knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight f3, d5, d4, as if we got a Queen's Gambit declined, yeah? So we have this c takes d now, but black unleashes the move c5. And lo and behold, we have c takes d5, knight takes d5. This is semi-Tarrasch territory, right? Tal is black, Polgiavsky is white. Don't get confused by the nature of the game you're about to see. e4, black takes, and it seems Fischer's played it differently from all the Russians so far. We're getting evidence they're playing it differently to Fischer, because Fischer, right, after c takes, played knight c6, didn't he? Right, for that b5. But no, everyone else is playing bishop b4 check rather routinely. So we get this exchange of bishops, and we get this position where, okay, bishop c4 is played without this any nuisance b5, yeah? So we get this position here, and yeah, it's an imposing centre in some way. White castles b6, trying to sort out the c8 bishop. Rook a d1, and the rook's harmonious again. Hello, hello. They're very nice. Nicely together in the centre. Seems very familiar. Knight a5. Bishop drops back to d3. A fascinating thing happens here after rook c8. I'm not entirely sure how sound this is. Strange. White to play here. What would you play with white here? It's actually the top move in Livebook. Maybe this is the granddaddy of this move. The engines don't come up with this move. So this is a big difference between engine chess and opening books. It seems people are aware of a certain move here, a naughty move. What would you play here? At least Fritz doesn't rate it. Maybe other engineers do. Yes, this is USSR Championship played in Moscow. 7th September 1969, round 2. White plays d5. Now, Tal took this, right? But the idea wasn't e takes. No, that wasn't the idea. I think black's okay. Black can use this to simplify. This is just okay. You know, black's got no problem. It's about equal. That's not the idea. Even though, okay, that's not the idea. No, the idea is actually to play e5 here. So white's potentially got this nice blockade square, which can lead to that nice f5 square. We have knight c4 hitting the queen, queen f4. And yes, it looks a little bit vulnerable, a bit shaky, these guys, without any defensive knight. Tal actually kind of ignores a little bit, it seems, his king safety, believe it or not. Well, he plays actually what seems to be, what seems to be the top kind of engine move, knight b2, forking here. Interestingly, the game takes a very interesting twist now. Polgiavsky. Can you guess what Polgiavsky plays? White's play. What did Polgiavsky play here against Tal? What do you think? Now, B. Kirker, who seems to be extremely cultured, has indicated, by the way, on PlayChess, that d5 was in fact a novelty at the moment that Polgiavsky had prepared for Tal. So we're actually in brand new novelty territory here, apparently, with this game. White to play. Yes, white sacrificed the bishop. Wow, against Tal? Really? That's a bit naughty, isn't it? Okay, Tal took, and now we have knight g5 check. And the king is really forced to come to g6. If the king goes to g8, then I know this is pretty crude, but queen h4, not just crude, but very effective at the same time. What does black actually do here? If he plays this, then check, and in this position, this is apparently is really crushing. e6, the check, queen takes, win the queen, for example, and it's kind of carnage ensues. We win the knight. Yeah, white's like +10. So yeah, you don't want to go back to g8. You know, there's big problems going back to g8 here after queen h4. So no, the king comes out to g6. But now we have a quiet move supporting the knights, because black is actually threatening to take the knight, right? White supports the knight as if he's just played a fishing pole sort of attack done like in bullet chess. So that fishing pole with a difference, because it seems as though all the key squares for checking the black king have been taken away now. f5, e4, this rook's hanging. What's going on here? Why doesn't black just take the rook? Well, black actually just kicked the queen with rook c4. This might not be the best defense, believe it or not. This might not be. Maybe. Now let's see. Let's see this position. If Tal played knight takes d1. There's some snags here. Can you see what white can play in this position? White to play here. Let's test how crude your chess is. So, any hacking attackers, what would you play with white here? It seems you're running out of bits. Your rook has just been munched, but nevertheless the engine is on your side here. That you have a winning advantage in this position. If only you can find the right move, you have a winning advantage. Otherwise, you're going to be -4. Anything else you do will be -4 here if you don't find the right move. Apparently. Okay, I'll show you. The only move it seems in this position, now that your rook has been munched, is the move h5. So 500 points for those that found h5. Now what on earth is this doing? Well, the queen actually is on f5, right? So if we take here, we've got g4 check. Yeah, so if king g6, this is mating here. Sweet. Oh wow. Sorry, there's a mate in 2 here, which is quite beautiful. Sorry, mate in 2. Sorry, who sees the mate in 2? 500 points. So white to mate in 2. Oh, this is great stuff with an engine. Oh my god. White to mate in 2. Can you see a mate in 2 here? This is fantastic. There's a mate in 2 puzzle in this position. Can you see a mate in 2? Even though you're only down to like queen and knight and that pawn, yeah, you've got 3 attacking pieces. Let's include the pawn as an attacking piece as a clue. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Only with 3 attacking pieces you can do a checkmate here by force. Knight takes f7 is a forced checkmate because actually that pawn is like an attacking piece. It supports queen h5 checkmate. How embarrassing! Wow. So yeah, g4 check. Is like winning here. If king h6, queen h2 check, if takes here, check, here, queen f5 checkmate. So it seems like h5 is winning in all these variations, yeah. If king h6, this doesn't look too appetizing for knight e6 check. And we just like take the queen and just take here, and this is good enough to be an advantage for white. This is horrible for black. The attack still carries on. In fact, the attack still carries on. So yeah, this is all pretty horrible. So knight takes d1 was ruled out perhaps successfully by Tal, but it's what he plays rook c4 is not the best defensive move apparently. From an engine point of view, the move queen e7, by the way, it might be best apparently. Queen e7. No, Tal played rook c4. Well, queen e7 apparently it's equal from the engine's view, but okay, rook c4. Now, the attack was continued in the game with h5 check. Nevertheless. And this is slightly different. The queen's attacked, right? So the king does go to h6, not minding knight e6 check because the queen's attacked. So we instead use this double check on the king. The king goes to h7. Whoops. Oh, please, come on. Sorry, this position. Knight takes f7, double check. The king goes to h7. Check, king g8, and now white's play here he sacks like an exchange with e6. He's prepared to sack the exchange. He's supporting his knight. And there's a real killer idea to this. That if the knight takes the rook here, let me test you here. No, there's one particular killer idea in this position, which is e7. I'm not going to test you on that. E7 is killing there. To show that, we take here. Check. Check. And we can win that queen. But yeah, so Tal actually played queen f6 trying to defend things. Which actually is like a fun kill move. Yeah, the fun one was knight takes d1 e7. Yeah, so queen f6, and white now. So he hasn't actually sacrificed his rook, but he has got a good position. It seems he actually takes the queens off and moves that rook. And this position, I mean, is he down on pawns even? Black's got 4 pawns. I mean, he's got an extra pawn. So we see rook c6 trying to undermine this knight. Potentially. White just takes on b2. Hang on a sec. What white in this position is a piece down. In this particular position, white is a piece down. This is the interesting thing. Yes. Now there's a reason white is actually okay here, and black cannot keep being a piece up. I think that's the most pertinent question, right? If black wanted to try and maintain being a piece up, he'd play a move like knight a4, right? But actually we see this pass pawn now. We've seen the pass pawn on the d file, on the c file. We've got one on the e file here. White can actually get a big advantage in this position. With what? How can white get a big advantage with the passed e pawn here? White to play here. There's a way of getting a big advantage with white here. What would you play in this position to try and exploit your passed e pawn? Anyone? This wasn't played. Black didn't try and keep the extra piece. Knight h6 might actually be a small advantage, actually, it seems. It seems one of the more incisive ways. Knight h6 might actually be good as well. Knight d6. So we hit these guys. Bishop c6. e7. Yeah. Takes. And actually the e-pawn's quite good here, it turns out. This is a threat. Also, some other stuff is going on here. But this is actually good for white. If here, for example, rook e3, and we've got this h6 on the cards, it's dangerous. So yeah, Tal gave back his piece actually. He didn't play knight a4. He plays rook c6, allowing this piece to be taken back. And now we see rook e8. But white has got still an edge, it seems. Check. Knight f5. So Tal wins that dangerous looking pawn. After the rooks come off, rook c2, white is now threatening rook c7 check. So after all that, the storm has cleared up of the game, but white still seems to be having a very, very nice position. Tal tries to defend that with rook c6, but now we have rook e2 threatening rook e7 check, and it's kind of difficult to try and defend this position. Bishop c8 was tried, allowing that invasion of the rook. this didn't really help that much. Now this is bad for black, so perhaps better would have been something else here, like rook c7, for example, like this. This is still better for white, but it's better than the game. Yeah, bishop c8 it didn't allow white to play this check, and now this horrible knight h4 threatening knight g6 check, and then h6 with the idea of h7 mating. So that's very bad news for black, for Tal, in this position. This was approaching move 40, so probably he was short on time in playing this way. He played now f5, and we get this knight g6 check. So f5 was to keep pressure on to stop h6, right, to take here. But in this position, white simply, now it doesn't move the h pawn, he just takes on a7, and he's threatening knight e7 check. And here, this is actually really bad news, this position. Tal actually resigns here. If for example, rook e6, rook a8, this is bad. We get into this tactic where we kind of lose a piece. So yeah, Tal cracked up in the end there. After, in this position, he's busted. So that was Polgiavsky against Tal in the semi-Tarrasch. So it seems these semi-Tarrasches have this potential for white to have these dangerous passed pawns. Now, okay, hi, but B. Kirker, is he still there? Thanks. Any others, or another time next week? Any other references, or you're okay now? Anyone to check out? I'm glutton for punishment here. Let's check out the semi-Tarrasches tonight. So yeah, Mikhail Tal couldn't handle the black side. It seems to have a lot of dynamic play for white. You're all convinced this position has got dynamic play for white. Pass pawns. Was the audio gone? It is all for today. Okay. Is audio gone? What? You still have audio? Interesting. I don't know. Audio, okay, I don't know. Press play or something. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, so we've explored some similar games in that opening, the semi-Tarrasch. So that's been a bit of an eye-opener for me. Alright, yeah, thanks for coming. So we'll carry on next week. Thanks. Okay, have a nice week. See you next week. Okay, see you guys.